Hello. Today we're going to be realizing the floor of art, but first let's go over the decks. I have a Rose Charge deck with 2 Energy Cycle, 2 Leap, 2 Dimensional Rift, 1 Rewind, 1 Rip Space, and 1 Ripple. For passives I have Eye of Death Enervation, Keeping in Stride, and Battle Ready. Next I have 2 Emmas with Health Hauler, Puppet Skeleton, and Concussion. I have Oscar with Battle Ready, Health Hauler, and High Level Acrobatics, and I have Unstable Crying Children with Health Hauler, Dark Cloud Blade, and Battle Ready. Alright, let's get into it. So this first phase against the Capo is like a scripted fight, as it'll last 5 scenes, 6 scenes, and they'll use a unique combat page each scene, and it is preset. Additionally, they'll get strength equal to the number of allies who can act, and they'll get 1 new ally each scene. However, the allies don't act, and upon becoming staggered, they become immobilized for the duration of the phase, which means that the Capo will not be getting their power-ups from it. Of course, you can kill them, and I do recommend killing them because the Capo is immune to all forms of damage, basically, and so like you're not going to kill them and you may as well just wait for the phase to change, and so you can get more emotion coins by killing them. For pages, the first movement is a mass summation that prioritizes the 3 librarians in the front, and it will roll 6 to 6, but because there's 1 power up it'll roll 7. Alright, the second movement will target all librarians, and it's a 3 to 6, 2 to 5 mass individual. Most of your pages will work against this one. Puppet Blockade is technically likely to lose, and your other light regen pages are generally iffy, but anything else will work fine, and in a pinch of course you can use your Extract Fields and Giggy Gigs. Alright, for passives, Tentacles is pretty strong, but I like to take Laughing Powder as stagger resistance management becomes fairly important later in this realization. Third movement 8 to 8, but all characters get +3 power except for the Capo, and so any page is statistically likely to outroll it, including Puppet Blockade. Alright, the fourth movement, 2 to 5, 2 to 4, 2 to 4 mass individual, and if 2 or more attacks connect, the target's light gets set to 0. So here you really don't want to be getting hit, obviously, so you might want to use pages that are guaranteed to outroll it, which would be 655 min rolls. Alright, again, Tentacles is good for killing bosses. Thorns is also pretty good, but I think Tentacles is slightly better. And I'll put it on my Oscar because he is Pierce focused. Alright, and here we go, finale. 12 to 12 summation, and if the target has Fervent Adoration, they get staggered. None of my characters have that, but if you get hit by certain attacks, I'm not sure if it's all of them, then they'll get inflicted with Fervent Adoration, and you won't be able to control them, etc. Honestly, like if that happens to you, I would just restart since it's at the very start of the realization, so it doesn't really matter. Alright. Fragments from somewhere is Pierce focused, and have a bunch of Pierce and Stagger focused passives. So Tentacles, very similar to the Abnormality page, where upon hitting someone with a Pierce attack, their max stagger resistance gets reduced by 5%. They deal double stagger damage with attacks, and starting with the third scene, every 2 scenes use a more powerful combat page, but we plan on staggering her on scene 2. So, the dim sound of singing, 3 to 8, 3 to 7, 2 to 7, something with an evade die or 3 fairly powerful dice will work best. Penetrate, 6 to 8, and adds enlightenments to the target's hand, which has 3 fairly strong evade die, but reduces your max stagger resistance by 50% while it's in your hand. Then penetration of the boundary, 6 to 8 block, and then that 6 to 8 pierce that adds the enlightenment. Alright, here I'll just take Incomprehensible, and I'll put it on my Rose because she has fairly consistent attacks. Here's just more of the same. Alright, our galaxy is untargetable and has 2 modes. The first mode is while all allies are alive. She will be healing them by 7 every single scene, but when 1 or more of them die, she'll switch to crying mode, which will make her use some fairly powerful mass attacks. So the idea is to kill all of the Friend of the Galaxies on the same scene, in which our galaxy will have her max health reduced to 50 and she'll become staggered. Star Shower, 3 to 6, 3 to 6, 3 to 6, blunt melee. As long as you have an evade die or 3 like medium powered dice, that'll be fine. The more threatening page, Glimmer, is a 3 to 11 evade and then a 2 to 7 blunt that inflicts 2 fragile. Here you're going to want to have a defensive die on 1 to blank the evade, and then from there shouldn't be too hard. Alright, and here we can see one of the crying pages because I misjudged my damage, but 15 to 15 mass summation that inflicts 3 fragile on hit. As long as you have light, it's not too threatening, but since I don't, I'm gonna have to tank it on some of my characters, but that's fine. Alright. Pleasure will give 2 emotion coins to anybody it hits. Takes no damage from ranged pages. And all of their pages have offensive dice that add copies of pleasure to the target's hand. And so at the start of each scene, characters restore 1 light for each pleasure that they have in their hand. And on hit, if the target has 3 or more pages of pleasure, it deals 20 damage to them and exhausts the pleasure pages. Additionally, if a librarian has 2 or more copies of pleasure in their hand, it uses a very powerful page. So first, Game of Trust, 6 to 10 Pierce that adds 2 copies of pleasure, and then 2 1 to 10 evades. Generally, you're just going to want to have a strong 1, and then you don't need to deal with these evade die. Stinging Ecstasy, 4 to 8 through to 8 through to 6, that adds 2 1/1 copies of pleasure. This one is also fairly powerful, but if you have a strong evade die or something like Repressed Flesh, then you should be able to handle it. And the last page, Wide Grin, 1 to 10 evade, and then a 6 to 10 that adds 2 copies of pleasure, and then another 1 to 6 evade. This one you want a defensive die on 1 and then a strong 2 to be able to deal with this one. Alright, here we have 3 pages that don't really do a whole lot. I think I'll take Autumn's Passing though, and just put it on Rose. Alright, next we have Faint Aroma, and this one starts much like the Abnormality fight, except Faint Aroma is Pierce Stagger Normal and Blunt Stagger Normal, and so instead of putting it on our Oscar, the Laurel Wreath that is, I think it'll be better to put it on one of our Emmas. Something like this. And then, of course, for the rest of them, we're just going to try and kill as many as we can while they're still not acting. And so, if you calculate your damage well, you can kill 3 of them, but if not, you'll easily be able to kill 2 of them. Alright, so these pages, Entangling Spare is the same as the Abnormality Battle. They're all casting it. Full Bloom 3 to 8, 3 to 7, 3 to 6 that inflicts 1 aroma with each hit. This one, probably Repressed Flesh or Will of the Prescript, Automated Movement, etc. will work best. And second Full Bloom. Alright. Crack in the Heart, again, same as the Abnormality Battle. So, just use some pages with a defensive die on 1. And Mound of Flowers, Repressed Flesh works really well here. Alright. Autumn's Passing, 3 to 6, 3 to 5 block die, and another Full Bloom. And since there's no more enemies left, we can redirect the pages just so that our character that can deal damage will be able to free hit. And also, we can make use of our stagger passives that we put on our other Emma and our Oscar as well to get a bit more chip damage in, I guess. Alright, now the last phase brings back the Capo with mostly the same passives. So the same ensemble passive, which gives them 4 power up at the start because they have 4 allies that can act. And this is another scripted fight, except much harder. So the first movement, same as the start, and Presto Passionato targets the librarian with the lowest current stagger, and since looks like everyone's on max stagger, it just targets whoever has the lowest max stagger. And it has a 3 to 7 slash die that drains target from the light. Wow, that drains light from the target and makes them take more stagger damage from attacks. Additionally, this page gets 1 power for each 10 points of stagger resist that the target's missing, but in this case it won't gain any power from that effect. And now for the performers pages. Pianissimo, 2 to 5 blunt and then 2 to 5 block, and if the blunt die hits, then the Capo will gain 2 power when clashing against the character that it hit. Strains of Reality, 2 to 6, 2 to 5, and then both of them give the stagger damage increase debuff. Vibration of the Boundaries, if this attack is one-sided, then its effect will apply to all librarians, and it's just a 46 pierce that sets the target's speed to 1 if it hits. Finally, Melody of Silence, 3 to 6, 2 to 4, and if the 2 to 4 hits, the character gets immobilized next scene. So we're going to want to kill these chairs ASAP in order to reduce the amount of power that the Capo gets, and then we can focus her down. Alright, second movement, same as at the start of the fight, and these are also not new pages. Third movement is the same, and these are also the same. Fourth movement is the same, and here we get Adagio Cantabile, which is 3 to 4 and then 6 to 6. That on Clash Lose, the target recovers 6 stagger resistance. Alright, and there we go. A fairly long fight, but as long as you're paying attention for everything, it shouldn't be too hard. After realizing the floor of art, you'll get access to these abnormality pages. Ever Repeating Performance is an interesting page. It adds a 3-cost card to your hand that, on use, immediately ends the scene and sets the librarian's HP and stagger to what it was when you selected the page. This is good to dodge enemy mass attacks or other bomb pages, especially later in the game where the enemy might be casting 2 or 3 in a scene. Fervent Adoration is a very funny page. For the next 2 scenes, enemies target randomly, which can include their allies. Additionally, they deal a little bit more damage with their attacks. This page will usually cause you to win the reception if the enemies aren't too tanky. The finale is a really good snowball page. When the selected librarian staggers an enemy, all enemies lose between 1 and 6 light. Notably, it has to be the librarian you select, so you need to be careful of that, but if you can get it rolling, then enemies will often just be stuck on 1 light. Additionally, you'll get access to these 5 ego pages. Fragments from Somewhere is a 4-cost range page with 3 decently powered dice that deal stagger damage on each hit. Additionally, the page that's clashing against loses 4 power, which makes it very hard for the enemy to outroll it. Our Galaxy is a 6-cost individual mass attack with 3 dice. They don't roll super high, but they restore the user's HP by the unmodified roll, which means that they'll restore between 9 and 22 HP. Pleasure is a 4-cost melee page with a very powerful 1 and a fairly weak 2 that gets rolled 3 times. Additionally, the first die gains power equal to the target's emotion level, so it gets stronger the lighter reception goes. Faint Aroma is a 5-cost individual mass attack with slightly worse rolls than Our Galaxy. It doesn't have the HP recovery, but if the target is staggered, they'll take 8 additional damage. Finally, the Capo is a 6-cost individual mass attack and has the strongest rolls out of the 3. Additionally, each of the die inflicts a very powerful debuff if it hits. The first one makes the target lose 2 light. The second one sets their speed to 1 for the next scene, and the third one inflicts 1 feeble and disarm this scene. I'd recommend taking Fragments from somewhere, our galaxy, and a Capo. Pleasure doesn't do a lot of damage, and it's kind of non-synergistic since the first die wants to clash, but the second die wants to free hit. And Faint Aroma's effect only triggers if you're already weighing the reception, whereas our galaxy is useful when you're behind as well. In the next video, we'll be fighting Tifreth's next abnormality, the King of Greed. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.